political leaders and all the high-ranking leaders and executives of the various parties to be here. And we are asking that with you in our midst, this program will come to a successful end. We also pray that, Lord, whatever questions are thrown to them should be questions that are, Lord, purpose-driven, and not just to make their voices be heard. Father, we pray, be with us throughout this program, that in the end, when your will is done, we give the honor, the glory, and the adoration. Thank you, Father, for hearing us in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
And make our nation great and strong, all to defend forever the cause of freedom and of right. With true humility, make us cherish fearless honesty, and help us to resist oppressor's rule with all our will and might forevermore.
2 cheers for democracy. 1, because it admits variety, and 2, because it permits. 1, because it admits variety, and 2, because it permits criticism. E.M. Foster. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Institute of Economic Affairs and on my own behalf, I welcome you to this historic presidential debate in Tamale. I also extend a special hand of welcome to our 4 distinguished presidential candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, the selection of Tamale as the venue for the last presidential debate is not a matter of chance. For the first time in our political history, all the presidential candidates are gathered here in Tamale at the same time and on the same platform. Secondly, the hosting of the debate in Tamale demonstrates that while there may be differences in the complexity and gravity of the developmental challenges confronting the North and the South, we are all one people. Furthermore, by bringing the presidential candidates here, we at the IEA are sending a message to all Ghanaians that politics can be used to heal and unite. The fact that our political leaders can engage in competitive but healthy debate is a signal that we can all do likewise. Distinguished guests, the Accra debate demonstrated that the strengthening of Ghana's pillars of democracy is a collective effort. All citizens and institutions have a stake in it. The Accra debate was a spectacular success, and I trust that the debates in Tamale would measure up to that of Accra. The Accra debate put a positive spotlight on Ghana. It generated unprecedented media and public interest in our growing democracy. Our local media, as well as the BBC, SABC, Reuters, CNN, Sky TV, and others covered it. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no doubt that the Accra debate helped to make the electioneering process issue-based. For well over 1 week, the print and electronic media were awash with opinions and comments on the policies, plans, and vision of the 4 debaters. Whilst there were differences in opinion, the Accra debate demonstrated that our democracy is indeed getting stronger. We have no doubt that the Accra debate made the right impact on the electorate. To some, a debate should necessarily involve a verbal war. However, the civil posturing of our distinguished candidates led to a calming of pre-election tensions and a lowering of the political temperature. The Accra debate presented Ghanaians with the only platform so far for a comparative analysis of party manifestos and policies. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the benefits of democracy is that it allows for cooperation even in competition and dialogue even in division. It is a journey to the horizon. And like all journeys, it has its perils. But if we stay the course, the dividends are many. It is the hope of the IEA that this debate will take us a step closer to that democratic horizon. We are through these debates building a culture of civil dialogue and continuing a fine tradition which will strengthen the pillars of Ghana's democracy. Distinguished guests, even as we strengthen these pillars, let us look together towards the horizon and concede in our hearts that we can only get there by taking concrete steps, like this debate this evening. On behalf of the Institute, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the British High Commission, the Center for International Private Enterprise, and the United Nations Development Programme. Their support made the hosting of both debates possible. Ladies and gentlemen, whilst not being overly complacent, it is clear that the organization of these debates demonstrate that gradually Ghana's democracy is stepping towards the democratic horizon. The IEA wishes our distinguished debaters the best in tonight's event and the best of luck in the impending election. May Ghana be the ultimate winner. I would kindly call on His Eminence Peter Cardinal Turkson to give us his brief remarks.
State, members of parliament, traditional rulers, religious leaders, distinguished invited guests, and all of you fellow citizens of this great land of ours, I bid you all a very good afternoon and welcome all of you warmly to this second presidential debate organized by the Institute of Economic Affairs in view of elections 2008. We want to thank again the presidential aspirants who have again graciously accepted our invitation to participate in this debate. Your kind response and friendliness at the last debate made it a very successful event in the consolidation of democracy in our land. For if the exercise of democratic governance requires the free exercise of choice between political options, then any initiative to inform and to educate the electorate about these options before it serves democracy very well. Yes, that is what this debate is all about. It is a session of formal exchange of opinions about issues of national interest, which is aimed at informing and educating the people of this country about the candidates before us and what they stand for. Indeed, a broad spectrum of this nation was consulted, and their responses feed into the questions which will be addressed to our candidates. Over 200 responses were received. The Presidential Debates Committee did a yeoman's job of trying to go through the questions, crunching them from over 200 questions to 55, and identifying certain broad themes and topics under which to arrange these. This ultimately became the economy, good governance, and social issues. And it was a decision then to address one issue in Accra, supported by social issues, and to bring governance here in the north, supported again by some questions on social issues, and that's what tonight will all be about. So for having done all of this, we want to commend and congratulate heartily members of the Presidential Debates Committee for the work that you have done. Indeed, we wish also to commend and to congratulate and thank you members of, on the days, the aspiring presidential candidates, for your generous response to this invitation. Without you, there would be no debate. We want to thank especially the moderators who are here, who would be able to translate the questions into information sessions for the electorate and for all of Ghana. So finally, we thank you and we wish you the best of luck, and may God bless your answers and everything that you do this evening. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Cardinal Texan. There will be 3 rounds of questions. There will be 2 3-minute breaks in between the rounds. A new candidate will begin each round of questions. This is based on the pickings done during the ballot for seats. There will be at least 3 questions in each round. Moderators will have 30 seconds to ask a main question. Presidential candidates have 2 minutes within which to answer a main question. Moderators have the discretion to ask follow-up questions in 10 seconds. Candidates have 1 minute within which to answer a follow-up question. Moderators have the discretion to allow a right to rebuttal. Candidates have 1 minute in exercising their right to rebuttal. There shall be no clapping during the debate. However, you are free to do so at the break-ins between the rounds. At the end of the 3rd round, each candidate will have 2 minutes to make a direct appeal to voters. Kindly switch off all mobile phones. I repeat, kindly switch off all mobile phones. Thank you very much. The theme for tonight's debate is strengthening the pillars of Ghana's democracy. The rounds will be under the sub-themes of good governance and human or social issues. The first round of questions will focus on good governance. Our moderators for this evening are Professor Ivan Adai-Mensah, former Vice Chancellor, University of Ghana, Legon, and Mr. Israel Lai, broadcast journalist, Joy FM, Accra. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we hope you will have a good evening. Over to you, moderators. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, once again, you're all welcome to the second IEA presidential debate dubbed the Tamale debate. My name is Israel Lai, and I'll be moderating together with
Ivan Adai-Mensah.
The rules have already been read out to you, but I'd just like to reiterate some of them. You can say exaggeration for emphasis. After that, we'll move straight on to the very first question, which will be answered by each candidate, starting with you, Nana Akufo-Addo. And each of you would have 2 minutes to answer each question, after which you may be granted a further 1 minute within which you may react to anything anyone else has said. But here I must stress that the IEA is very appreciative of the very cordial atmosphere that the debate in Accra was held. And since you're all aspiring to be the first gentleman of the land, we're expecting and we're absolutely sure we're going to have another very cordial atmosphere for this evening's debate. Now, much as Prof and I would allow some latitude in this debate for exchanges between yourselves, we'd expect that whatever crossfire might erupt, we'll see it when the bell goes off or when we say so. Prof will take the very first question.
Thank you, Israel. Now let us set the tone of today's debate with a fundamental issue of governance. Good governance, as you are all aware, depends on sound constitutional provisions. Now, after 16 years of operating the present constitution, is there any aspect of it that you think needs to be reformed or amended so as to impact positively on the lives of the ordinary Ghanaian? Nana.
Thank you very much. First of all, once again, fellow Ghanaians, it's good to be back here. We want to thank again the IEA for this program, as well as my colleagues around the table. I think the question is very apt. definitely after 16 years of operating a constitution, especially since both the major political parties in our country have had an opportunity to work it, there are several matters that have come up for discussion. And my way forward is that those issues, we will put a constitutional review commission in place very soon after taking office to go around the country collecting the views of our people to see how strong is this demand for reform. There are matters that all of us know about. Ministers in Parliament, should they come from Parliament? The powers of the Attorney General, should they be separated? The issue as to whether or not we should have a Prime Minister rather than a Vice President, like many of our neighbors do. The term of the President has come up. Is 4 years the ideal term for us, or are we talking 5 years? We've got the question of the election of district chief executives. Is that something that we want to see, or we want to have them appointed? These are some of the issues. We're talking, for instance, also about the creation of regions. We have at the moment very stringent provisions for creating more regions. Should we have looser provisions? I think these are the matters that the Constitutional Review Commission will take before our people. And if the answer is in the affirmative, that yes, there is a widespread demand out there, then to initiate the processes in the Constitution for amending the Constitution. That would be my response to what you have to say, Professor.
Dr. Ndo.
First of all, I wish to thank the IEA for providing us with this forum. And fellow Ghanaians, this is one of the important questions that we need to answer. Because you may say good governance. I say responsive governance. Because we want a government that is responsive to the needs of the citizen. And so there are, indeed, specific areas in the Constitution that I believe need change. And what I will do, should I become the next president of Ghana, is within the first 100 days, work with the leadership in Parliament and others to put the review process in motion. First of all, decentralization, bringing government to the people, taking power from the hands of the president, and ensuring that our people, who now have the right of electing a president, electing a member of Parliament, electing other members of the Assembly, to elect their own district, municipal, and metropolitan chief executive. The people deserve that right. And then to elect all the members of the district assembly. And secondly, to make sure that people go to Parliament only to become lawmakers and not to want to become ministers, so that they can indeed concentrate on the responsibility of making laws and separate the executive from the legislature. And then we all know the issues of corruption and difficulties with the law in Ghana. I want to lay clearly on the table the separation of the Attorney General's responsibility and office from that of the Minister of Justice, so that we can at least deal with the perception that if you're a member of a certain party, you go scotch-free. But if you're not a member of that party, then you get punished very, very heavily. These are some of the very specific things that go to the core of responsive governance. And I will deal with them with dispatch immediately to get the rest of the country together with us, sell the idea to the people, and make it happen.
Professor Mills.
Well, once again, I would like to add my voice to the words uttered by my colleagues. I thank the good Lord for making it possible for us to be here today, and I wish my colleagues all the best of luck. Years after 16 years, one has to take a look at the Constitution. Clearly, changes have come, and there's a need for us to take a fresh look at the Constitution, what needs to be done. One area is with the vice presidency. If I talk about it, one should not be surprised. The appointment of the vice president, where the vice president has a problem with the president, what happens? We look at the judiciary. Is there going to be an upper limit to the number of judges to the Supreme Court? You look at decentralization, how effective it is. How can we make the people, decide their own fate and destiny? Now there's also the question of members of Parliament. Should they be ministers? Can they combine and combine effectively? What are we doing about Parliament to strengthen Parliament itself? The appropriation to Parliament, the help for Parliament, these are all areas that we need to look at. We need to look at the powers of the executive. Do they lead to exclusion? Is all power concentrated in the hands of the executive? Do people think that it's a winner-take-all affair? These are areas that we need to look at. But let me say that it is for the people to decide. Views must be collated, sought and collated. And at the end of the day, we must take decisions which will make it possible for us to move this country forward, to learn from the mistakes of the past and improve the Constitution as we go along. In other jurisdictions, it's done regularly, and we should be able to do it too.
Dr. Mahama.
Good evening, fellow Ghanaians. I'm happy that we've had this opportunity to appear before you to present our views. With the issue of constitutional amendment, I'm not so sure that the Constitution is the problem. I think that the good governance that we are looking at, there are many things that we can do to bring about good governance. But one area of the Constitution that I'm particularly concerned about is the issue of the Council of State. Some of the very first appointments of the president are supposed to be on the advice of the Council of State. But the president also appoints some members to the Council of State. So while he needs advice from the Council of State, is not yet informed. I would like to see a constitutional amendment that allows a holdover of the Council of State to advise the incoming president on some of these appointments. That is one area of concern to me. But coming back to the issue of the Constitution, as I said, for me, the real change that we need is actually to reduce corruption and make the institutions of governance, Parliament, the judiciary, the NCCE, and the other institutions, Serious Fraud Office, to have systems within them that work very well for all of us. And I think at this point in time, tampering with the Constitution will not add too much to our problems. Our problems are people, government performing according to systems. Everybody knows that our systems are not working. And when I say systems, I'm not just talking about the president and cabinet and corruption, but I'm talking about even the district assembly level. The district chief executive wields a lot of power, spends a lot of money, yet he is not accountable to the people. He should be made accountable in an election. That's what I would do.
Okay, Israel, I turn it over to you.
Yes, we go on to our second question, and I'll start with you, Dr. Pakwesi Indu. The district assemblies are supposed to be responsible for developmental and social issues at the local level. What measures would you introduce to deepen decentralization of government in Ghana so that we have not just decentralization for decentralization's sake, but decentralization that brings real benefit to the people?
Well, as you probably know, I have served as an elected member of a district assembly, and therefore I have learned firsthand what is it that we need to do to make sure that governance and development at the grassroots level works. And so I'll go back to the answer to the first question, that the very first thing we need to do is to put power in the hands of the people. They elect the people. If the people don't do what they're required to do the next time, they boot them out and they let someone else in. That is what is done in London, in South Africa, and many other places, and development is accelerated. So for me, that is the first step. The second step is actual fact, the decentralization of central agencies that today, by law, are supposed to go back to the districts. And the law is there, but the decentralization hasn't happened. One of the first things I will do is to make sure that that devolution takes place. The people who are supposed to go to the local level go there. And then we see more revenue to the people at the local level. Today it's about 7.5% or so of national revenue. That is not enough. We're keeping a lot at the center. And so we need to seed a lot more revenue to the local level, to the district level, and ensure that they indeed have the resources with which they have to work. But the centerpiece in my program here is the election of the district, municipal, metropolitan chief executive, and the rest of the district assembly members to ensure accountability at the local level is there. You should see us, the assembly members, the people hold us, the elected ones. We are the ones they hold accountable. But then the district chief executive goes free, and then they are free to do whatever they want. When they are elected, you will see rapid development at the local level.
Thank you, Professor Mills.
Well, it is important that decentralization brings power to the very people. And first of all, you have to look at the demarcation exercise. Which areas will the decentralization cover? Some have been done in the past which have not been really effective. But you want to make sure that people have a voice in the way they are ruled. One of the things that you need to do is to ensure that the district assemblies account regularly to the people. Before and after sittings, they must engage the people, explain policies to them. The broadcasting code has to be amended so the local FM station can broadcast the decisions and the policies of the district assemblies. You need to give them revenue. There are certain activities which can be decentralized, like passport applications, company registrations. You need to beef up the manpower of the district assemblies. We must encourage graduates to work there, look at their manpower requirements. When it comes to revenue, the guidelines issued by the local government ministry on the use of the district assembly common fund must be abolished. They must give in the leeway to decide how they are going to use the revenue. We must also find them some other areas of revenue. You also have to decentralize certain departments, health, education, among others. There must be also participating budget so that the people at the grassroots can decide what they want and also track down releases to them. We must ensure that the district assemblies are accountable. As to the election of the DCE, I have my own views about that. You have to talk about compatibility and fidelity. And I believe that the central government, which is the central government, which is partisan, needs somebody to liaise between central government and the non-partisan district assembly.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Edward.
Yes, the real change for me will be to make sure that not only will the district chief executive be elected, but that each regional minister will be part of the cabinet. I want to move the government closer to the people. Let them take control of doing things at the regional level, at the district level. There is too much concentration of power and money in the hands of the people at the center. And because of that, contractors do a job in Olobo in Western region. They have to come to Accra and spend many days chasing after certificates. I don't think that helps because they need 105 signatures to get approval for their money, which by the time they get it, it's already whittled away by the corrupt practices within the system. So the best way to do it is to move the money to the districts, move the money to the regions, and hold regional people, regional minister, district chief executive, accountable to the people in the region. Take the northern region or the 3 northern regions. Everybody talks about them being backward. How do you move it forward when the people at the center have to go to Accra to get, to get directives as to what to do? Give them the power to develop their regions and hold them accountable. Their necks will be on the block, so far as I'm concerned. When you do that, you really move the money there, move the activity there, you will actually decentralize. Also, all district assembly members will be elected. I will provide a technical team that will take indigents from those areas who want to provide advice, but do not want to go through the hassle of being elected, on this technical team to advise the district assembly as some of the developmental things that they need to do. That way, you are giving them the expertise without requiring people who may be shy to go for elections to be on it. That way also, you are not appointing people to the district assembly to dilute the effectiveness of elections.
Self-government is always the best sort of government. I mean, the closer government is to the people, the better it is, the quality of government it involves. So I have no difficulty at all in accepting the principle that those who exercise power in the locality must also be accountable, i.e. they should be elected. But I think in order for that to happen effectively, there's some structures that we need to put in place. The Local Government Service Act that came out in the year 2006 has already begun to work. It has already begun the process of transferring civil servants of the center to the districts. I think that process has to be substantially completed before we can move on to the stage of direct elections of civil servants, of the local government politicians. Secondly, money. Can never run anything without it. Currently, we're talking about 7.5% of the overall revenue of the state being ceded to local government. We're proposing 10%. Immediately move from 7.5% to 10% so that you can generate more resources for local government institutions to work with. Thirdly, we need also to look at the question of regions. Not only are we talking about district, but in bringing government closer to the people, we're also talking about the structure of our regional governments. Are they adequate? Are they not something that we should need to look at? Because it would seem to me that in some parts of the country, the requirement for more regions is there. That ought to be very much part of an effective decentralization program for our country. But we're looking right down the barrel and saying, yes, elections are critical. Secondly, the money is critical. And thirdly, making sure that the units that you're dealing with are units that are responsive and accountable. But I'm 100% in favor of the idea of moving rapidly towards direct election of chief executives as well as of the members of the assembly. I mean, thank you.
Oh, you can round up, please.
Now, I was just saying that the proposal about having some people, as it were, experts being in the assembly is a thing that I would still keep, even against a wholly elected assembly. A few people being appointed by the president to serve that purpose will be useful.
Right. Now, you've all talked about election at the district level, both the assembly members as well as the district chief executive. At the moment, election of the assembly members is supposed to be on non-partisan basis. Would you want that to continue, or would you rather elections were held on party or partisan basis? To all of you.
Who should begin?
Yeah, starting again from the one who started the question. There's a follow-up for everybody.
Yes. You know, we pretend that we are not engaged in party politics at the assembly level. That is not true. As I said, I've sought election at the local level. And believe me, political parties sponsor these people. And when you go to the assembly, we know who is the NDC member, who's the CPP member, who's the MPP member. So let's stop that charade. And let us make sure that the political parties, the people are smart enough to elect a president on a political platform as a party member, smart enough to elect the members of parliament as politicians belonging to a political party. Certainly, they are smart enough to elect the right person from the right political party to represent them at the local level. That is what I will propose.
Okay,
Professor Mills.
I think that candor in politics is very important. You want people with the right ability, with the right expertise to represent them. I believe that the idea behind the non-partisan nature at the very beginning was to try and get people who would otherwise not stand to come. But I agree with Dr. Indo that the time has come when we have to take the bull by the horns. We have to agree that what is happening is in fact something like a smoke screen. Parties are sponsoring candidates. And therefore, I think that we should throw it open. But at the same time, a certain portion can be reserved, as is being done, for the infusion of expertise, the marginalized, etc., so that they can also be appointed. A mix of the two, I believe, that will ensure that we get the right collection of people who will represent the people at the grassroots.
Dr. Mahama?
Certainly, I would advocate elections on a partisan basis, because I think we are deceiving ourselves if we think that those elections at that level are not partisan. They are, and I would advocate that we do. But I'd like to see a staggering of the elections in such a way that somebody, at the national level, the party in power doesn't just sweep across and put its cronies at the district level. So there has to be some checks and balances to make sure that that doesn't happen. Otherwise, we'll undermine the district assembly concept.
Mr. Akufo-Addo.
It's not partisan as we speak. I mean, all of us who are in the field know perfectly well that the elections to the district assemblies are all taking place on a partisan basis. So that the sooner the charade came to an end, the better. So they would deal with the reality of what's happening. I don't have any difficulty. I think that the difficulty that there is the possibility that you have at the center a president who's different from the different political party from the person who's district chief executive or mayor. These are the problems that are about to emerge in the process, and what we need to do is to focus on how we will arrange proper relationships if that occurs. I think, and it'll all be things that will help us develop and mature our democracy. But clearly, it is already happening on a partisan basis. Let's strip the smokescreen aside, deal with the reality, and recognize that it is partisan and deal with it.
Now let's move to our next question. Next topic for discussion. Well, notwithstanding the existing institutional and legislative measures to fight corruption, there is still a persistent concern that corruption is rife in our political and public life. What further measures would you institute to deal with this problem? And this time, Professor Mills.
Well, I believe that the first step toward the solution of a problem is the admission or acknowledgement that it exists. Let's all admit corruption is rife in our country. What do we do? Now, leadership has a lot to do with it. I, as leader or as president, will lead the fight against corruption. I will not allow any of my ministers, my party faithful, or cronies who are involved in corruption to go scot-free. I will let the law take its course. Number three, we have institutions which are supposed to deal with corruption. Are they well resourced? Do they have their independence? Are they able to prosecute after they have come out with their reports? We should give them the wherewithal to be able to do this. You know, with corruption, you must be seen to be biting and not only barking. Example is very important in this respect. And I, as president, will lead the crusade against corruption, because corruption has very harmful effects and they detract from the economic achievement that we want to make. And I think that it is the responsibility of those at the top to set a good example.
Dr. Edward Mahama.
Well, corruption is a problem we can actually control. We have an example. Dr. Lamar and the Third Republic, the kangaroo courts of the PNDC didn't even find one deputy minister or minister of any corruption. So it's been done before. What will I do? First, leadership by example. Secondly, at the legislative level, separate the position of Attorney General from that of Minister of Justice. The Attorney General will be independent. He can prosecute both sitting ministers as well as those outside or anybody in business. Thirdly, make sure that you put in conflict of interest laws. That's the legislative level. So that any minister would, for example, a hotel does not take all tourism related workshops to his hotel, or he may have wait a minute, or he may have a contracting firm and take all contracts from his ministry. Even district assembly level, it's occurring. It's occurring where the district assembly, the chief executive sets up a phony company and all contracts from the district go to his company. It's happening. And these are the things that I will do. Personal level, leadership by example, legislative level, separate the Attorney General from and also operational level, where you introduce this conflict of interest laws with whistleblower protection laws.
And I think the three things, obviously, the leader of the government and the head of the state has to give strong personal leadership. I don't have any difficulty in the idea of having ministers in my government for whom things are found being brought before the courts to answer. When I was Attorney General, I authorized the prosecution of a colleague. So that is not an issue that will be of any difficulty for me. Secondly, that we would also be dealing in terms of strengthening the institutions that are meant to fight corruption. 5 times we have increased the monies in the MPP period that has gone to the institutions like SFO, SHRAJ, and the police in order to sharpen their capability for dealing with this problem. Much more needs to be done. We know that SHRAJ continues to breed lawyers that is required for the fight. We have to fix that matter. And thirdly, stiffer punishments and measures for those who are caught by the courts to be fair. The whole issue of the separation of the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, I think, is a very overworked issue. First of all, you're going to require a wholesale amendment of the Constitution because the powers of the Attorney General are entrenched provisions in the Constitution. I think that the quicker, more effective, more efficient way is to make sure that those institutions that we have on the ground already that are fighting corruption are given the necessary sharpness. We're told by the Supreme Court, for instance, that you need to make a formal complaint in order to have SHRAJ investigate an issue of corruption. I would like to bring a bill to Parliament to put that aside, overrule the Supreme Court decision and allow SHRAJ to be able to investigate issues of corruption directly without any formal complaint. Those are the measures that I believe will assist us.
Dr. Ndom.
Well, there's no doubt that corruption is an important matter in our society. So let's strip it off the politicization. No political party has a corner on that problem. The fact of the matter is it is there. So what do? You fight the perception. You deal with the human institutions we have. You bring in systems and technology, and then you deal with the legislative matters. So, for example, what you want to do, the perception matter. You know, this separation of Attorney General from Minister of Justice is an important one. And yes, it's a difficult matter, but we must deal with it. We must set the process in motion. However long it takes, it's an important one. Number 2, the matter of speed in what we do within government circles. If I'm a contractor, and it takes me 6 months to get what is rightfully due me, so I have to go from desk to desk and give little monies here and there. And I can't forget when someone said to me, oh, Hats and Kotoko are playing. It is hot, so make me cool. I didn't understand the language, but what he was saying is, do something. You can only deal with that matter by bringing efficiency. You bring efficiency through technology, and the technology exists. So we reform the way we do things. You go to the ports, everybody complains. Put the cameras there. Let's put it on the surveillance 24 hours a day. And let's make sure that everybody knows it's not a private matter, it's a public matter. Let us tackle this thing head on. And then the matter of leadership. Leadership is important. If we are seen as being humble, if we are seen as doing what we need to do without all the trappings and all the monies here and there, the people will believe that we're doing the right things. So it's an important matter, but let us make sure that we strengthen the institutions. The police. I mean, if you talk about the police, they are an important element, yet they don't have the right equipment. They don't have the right systems. They're not paid well. So we should deal with the institutions as well.
All right, our final question for the very first segment, and that comes to you, Dr. Edward Mahama.
Sure.
And we're staying on the subject of corruption.
Yes.
Ghana's assets declaration regime is perceived as a farce. Now,
Ghana's
assets declaration regime is perceived as a farce. What measures would you take to raise public confidence in the assets declaration process?
As president, I will declare my assets publicly. I require all my ministers to do the same thing. At the end of my service, I will declare my assets publicly. I require my ministers to do the same thing. People can see the beginning what I had, the end what I have. And if there is any evidence that I have unlawfully collected things, then SHRAG or Serious Fraud Office, which I would have strengthened, would come after me. Personal example. I know this has been done before. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah inherited a lot of money. He left office, no penny, didn't buy any hotels or private property. So basically you can see clearly that this is the man who offered selfless sacrifice. Similarly, Dr. Lehman, He had a number of cars, left office without even a car. This is a man who sacrificed for the nation. You can see it clearly. Leadership by example. I can't stress that too much. And that is what I will do, and that is what needs to be done.
All right, thank you very much. We come to Nana Akufo-Addo.
Clearly, the assets system as we have now has a lot of problems. You have to go to court to get a court order to be able to get somebody's assets declaration. And that is a matter that all of us need to look at. I don't think there's any doubt about it. For myself, I have no difficulty at all in publicizing my assets on assumption of office and in requiring my ministers to do the same. Indeed, I've been a minister. I filed my assets, and on leaving office, I've also filed my assets declaration form as the law requires. So there's no difficulty about it. I'm sure that Dr. Nkrumah's story is all very well, but there are commissions of inquiry that tell us other stories. But I don't think that that is really a matter for us for a debate of this nature. What matters is that one's attitude towards it, that it's a serious matter, a matter that we're determined to deal with, and that we will also make sure that the legislative framework for fighting corruption, if at the moment the idea is that it is a secret, then let us bring in a law that makes it public, not just for the president, but for all officials of the state. That's a concrete way. As well as, of course, continuing to develop the legislative framework that allows us to fight corruption. Many of the bills that today have become acts, the Whistleblower Act, the Public Procurement Act, the Financial Administration Act, all of these were legislation that I initiated, that I began in my period as Attorney General to have put on the table of public discourse and action in our country. So I'm very, very focused on what we need to do, both at the personal level as well as at the institutional level, to make sure that we really get a grip on this fight against corruption. I'm not saying it's the most important issue before our people, but it is clearly a very important matter, and we need to get a grip on it. We do so by a series of measures, set of measures, not just one in isolation. But as far as the assets declaration form is, I believe that the time has come for us to go public on it, and that the law should be amended accordingly, so that it doesn't just become a gesture of the president, but it becomes the law of the nation. I think it's a much better way for us to go.
Dr. Makwis-Hindu.
Well, I believe we all agree that the assets declaration, the situation as it is today, is not acceptable. So we should all agree that whoever becomes president sets the process in motion to ensure that it doesn't remain a secret sitting at the Auditor General's office. And it's not just for the president, it's not just for the ministers, it's for the members of parliament and other government officials. It should apply across the board to everybody. And so when we pass the Right to Information bill to become an act, well, a certain critical piece of information, you can't touch it, and it doesn't make it work. So we need to, all of us agree that indeed we will take care of this matter. But let's go beyond that. There's a matter in the Constitution that also says that the president is exempt from paying taxes. I mean, that's an anomaly. We should change it and ensure that the president not only files his income tax return, but also makes it public every year, like they do it in other countries. What a great example that would be for all the ministers, all members of parliament, all public officials to follow. And then we will begin to deal with a matter of perception, because now we'll have the reality of what they're doing from year to year to year to year. So let's broaden it, and let's make it complete, and let the people be satisfied that the leaders are being honest, the leaders are doing the right things. And then again, you strip away all these other, side things, political things here and there, and who did what to whom and when. We'll deal with it, let the reality be something concrete, and let the seriousness prevail. That's what we should do.
Professor Mills.
Well, assets declaration, I believe, is quite important. But what end does it serve? I agree that the asset declaration must be publicized. But first of all, we must even verify that the declaration is true. You cannot just list any assets hoping that when you go into office, you will acquire them. Number two, at the end of the period, you must file your asset declaration form. And again, the verification should be done. There was a time when the asset declaration covered spouses. I would not limit it to spouses. there are surrogates. There are people who are close enough who also acquire assets on behalf of office holders. I believe that we should be able to broaden this out. How practical is another matter. But on the issue of corruption, I believe that I speak for a number of Ghanaians when I say that corruption is really breaking our society. People have come to me, this man has taken this man has done this, and yet we have this framework that we are all talking about. Clearly, it is not working. It is not working because people get away with corruption. People can take money with impunity. And indeed, the right signals are not being sent down. So I think that we must show that we are serious about corruption. When people are flaunting their obscene wealth, nobody raises an eyebrow. You should be able to say, look, enough is enough. Our people know what is happening. They know they've been victims of corruption. And I think the leadership must crack the whip, crack the whip, crack the whip. And that is the only way that we are going to get over the problem.
No.
All right, so that brings us quite close to the end of the very first.
Can I make a rebuttal?
Sure, that's it.
Yeah,
So
that's
because,
there's the opportunity
I'm
for
not
you
a lawyer,
to.
but Nana can
No,
better
we're
advise
going
me.
to give everybody 1 minute to react to whatever anybody has said.
On the issue of this declaration, the law may say file with this, but the law doesn't actually specifically say you shouldn't make it public. So if you want to show that you are an example, even though the law doesn't require it, you can do it as a matter of example. And that is what I'm talking about. Not waiting for the law to force you to do something and then you do it grudgingly, but doing it because it's the right thing to do and you are willing to do it, even regardless of the consequences.
Would you care to react to Nana or any of you?
Well, no, merely to say two things quickly, briefly. The point I was making is that we don't want it to be just this personal initiative. We want it to be part and parcel of our way of doing things. The president can make the example as a beginning, but we have to work for it to be part of our law, that there is public disclosure for everybody. That's the first thing. And secondly, some of the laws are biting. The public procurement law, for instance, was informed by the Public Procurement Board. The last year, the year 2007, some $330 million was saved to the state by the application of the procedures of the public procurement law. So there is a level at which the law is beginning.